1396, Columbus, Ohio. I am AJ England, and this is Late Lap. Late Lap brought to you loud and proud by whoever will pay me. You know, we've got ad space for sale. The great John Forrest told me one time, never say the name of somebody who won't pay you to put their name on your hat. And I always thought that was pretty wonderful. Okay, folks, what a great day and a great weekend of racing. And how about HendrickCars.com and the many Hendrick Cars sponsored athletes and drivers? I see, let's see here. Is that Dujanay Bland? What's up, my brother? It's good to hear from you. It's good to be here. I know that you've been excited. Let's talk about some Hendrick Cars. How about going into the NASCAR weekend in Homestead, Miami? Kyle Larson said he was going to do what cannot be done, what has only been done by another great Kyle, that and Kyle Busch, winning 3 stock car races in the same weekend at the same track. Friday night in Homestead, Miami, he did take the win in the number 07 Chevrolet, a beautiful Ricky Hendrick truck. It was wonderful. They sold some cars. He won it. Of course, Saturday comes along and not as fortunate. He did have some issues there on Saturday. He led a lot of laps. He was certainly the favorite and unfortunately couldn't get it done. Well, come around Sunday NASCAR weekend and it was the good one. It was Kyle Larson who came through the back. If you watch the race, Larry McReynolds, America's crew chief, talked about this and that, and he talked about how you're splitting the stages. NASCAR, of course, breaks their races into 3 and Charlotte 4 stints, and they talk about awarding points, and they do this and that. Well, Kyle Larson and Denny Hamlin's team, they cut the stages. And they cut them into different pieces with their pit strategy, and it paid off, both with the top 5. And Kyle Larson gets his 30th NASCAR Cup Series win. Think about this. When you're thinking about the greats in NASCAR history, he earned his 30th win faster and fewer races than Matt Kenseth. He's a Hall of Famer. Mark Martin, he's a Hall of Famer. Denny Hamlin, Kyle Busch, obvious Hall of Famers, and several others. 30 wins. 30 NASCAR Cup Series wins. To put that in perspective, a total championship racing season is only 36. It's 36. So he's nearly won an entire season of races in his young career, and he is a young driver with many more great seasons ahead. Who couldn't be more proud? So I'll answer the question as to who's the most proud. Rick Hendrick, the automobile mogul, real estate developer, race team owner. He owns all kinds of greatness, and he's always successful at anything he touches. It turns to gold. Well, Kyle Larson got himself into trouble a few years back and was looking for a ride. Mr. H dug him out, offered him a great partnership, and they've won a lot of races since. Of course, Mr. H isn't only a NASCAR guy. He also participates in NHRA drag racing. The greatest to ever do it in the pro stock category may be a debate. Some say Bob Glidden, some say the Coughlin family, some say whoever. But one of the greats is, of course, the great Greg Anderson, who won in Arizona in the most unusual of ways. You'll have to follow NHRA social media to see a clip of it, but it is a remarkable race where nothing happened. Dallas Glenn, who was an amazing competitor, clearly world champion caliber, he red lit. He never red lights. It was remarkable. And at that same moment, Greg Anderson's Chevy went, and then it didn't. But as Jason Galvin said in the post-race, it was a race to the red light. And Greg Anderson didn't earn the red light, and so he wins another one. I believe this is his 107th career win. You might be able to fact check me on the stats. I'll take it, because this just happened. Greg Anderson, though, right on top. He is the points leader, and he is sponsored by HendrickCars.com. HendrickCars.com and Chevrolet, a match about as perfect as peanut butter and jelly, and they won now 3 of 4 races. Now, one of the Hendrick Cars partnerships that we don't talk about as often is my former employer, the folks over at John Forrest Racing. They do have that support from HendrickCars.com, and Austin Prock, reigning Funny Car World Champion, has HendrickCars.com plastered all over his Cornwell Tools Chevy. It was him and Paul Lee in the world final race at Arizona. And the Arizona Nationals were settled in a little bit of a repeat in this young boxing-style rivalry between him and the 67-year-old Paul Lee. Paul Lee lost twice in the final round to Austin Prock last season, and this season it was not the Hendrick car winning in the funny car class. Paul Lee, who first raced in 1973 and has been licensed in a Nitro funny car for 20 seasons. He finally earned that big one, led by crew chief John Medlin on the 18th anniversary of losing his late son Eric. The Paul Lee machine got it done. And who couldn't be more proud of Paul Lee, John Medlin, and the rest of that crew? I gave their partner from IGTG, Scott Kunow, a call, and he answered. I said, Scott, man, tell me you're at the race. Scott Kunow and IGTG have been partnered with Paul Lee for a few years. They also work with Matt and Angie Smith and Krista Baldwin and some others, but it's an independent sponsor, IGTG, Scott Kunow. Definitely check them out, but he's been desperate for that Wally. He wants a big one, and he got it. Now, he's had it with the motorcycles, and he just emphasizes that the Nitro class as a partner and as a sponsor would be huge. I called him today, and he didn't make the race, which neither did I. I'm here in Studio 1396, so I couldn't be too rough on him, but he didn't know. He said he had it on tape, and so I kind of spoiled it for him. And Scott was so thrilled. He hollered at his wife. He said, we won. And that's what happens in NHRA drag racing. The great Michael Waltrip, two-time Daytona 500 winner, he said to the Fox broadcast crew when he won his second Great American race, he said, you just don't know what Daytona means. You can't unless you've won it, unless you've done it. And I've always shared that sentiment means a lot to me. Well, I'm sure that Paul Lee is feeling something similar today. You just can't know what it means to win an NHRA funny car event, to hold a Wally in your hand, and to make your sponsors proud. You just can't unless you've done it. We'll be right back. And we are back here on Late Lap. I mentioned some music that we'll be playing here soon. Peel 5, which is a parent company here at Late Lap, has acquired musical licenses. We're still kind of piecing together the show, but we're going to have some pretty badass music. I was working on some social media graphics, and I don't know if they're going to pop up here in the feed for you or not, but I actually had one that was pretty entertaining, if I do say so myself. It was about the various Hendrick drivers, because they've got a blue million of them. My late grandmother used to use that as a form of math, a blue million. I'm not sure how that pertained to a red million or a green thousand, but nonetheless. In NASCAR, Kyle Busch and his fan club, Rowdy Nation, they did a lot of things over the last several years, from going to be the bad guy to the hottest, fastest race car to improving team over driving that 8 Chevrolet for Richard Childress. He teased an announcement this evening about 2 hours ago. He said, news at 1851 on Monday. Now, if you went to my phone, 1851 would be 6:51 p.m. I was raised in a military family, worked in hospitals, so the 24-hour clock isn't unusual. For folks that aren't familiar, 1851 is 6:51. I'm going to assume that's Eastern time because he's based out of the Concord area. So 6:51 p.m. Monday night, there's going to be some type of news. I don't know if it's going to be a throwback paint scheme. I don't know if it's going to be an ownership. I don't know if it's going to be something about his son or his wife or his family. But if you're a casual fan, or for those of you who follow me for the drag racing scene, Kyle Busch's 2 numbers in his career that he really thrived with. He's driven several, but he really thrived, and one often was in the number 18 and the number 51. So there's definitely some kind of, cryptic message. I hope it's a great one. I was excited to see that he did something like that. And it was something good. Back to drag racing. Ron Capps. It was a subtle change here. I've got my show notes. Ron Capps. Oh boy. He's got some sore muscles and bones tomorrow, but God bless him. He's safe, and he had a walk away from a massive explosion today. It really reminded me of the one that the Boss Man had last year in June. Detonation of the motor and a car that shifted to the left wall, went over the center line. Extreme impact. Of course, you have that Gulf of Flames, but then it was put out. A good friend of mine texted me immediately and said they were praying for Ron, and that's great. And we do care about our drivers. But something that I want to emphasize, in the National Hot Rod Association, I believe we have tangible evidence that says we have the safest race cars in all of American motorsport. I'm not here to get on a pedestal and say that the other ones aren't safe. Unlike Fox with their recent, keywords in their ads, I don't represent these sports. I represent me, and I hope that I tell a good story to you. But I've been around drag racing long enough and studied it prior to know that these are safe race cars. These are safe race cars. And sometimes the unthinkable happens. Today's the anniversary of losing a driver. But that same driver is what allowed people like John Force Racing, the Ford Motor Company, Goodyear Tire, NASA, and the United States military to study, research, and design safer cars. And in Brownsburg, Indiana, you can check out the Eric Medlin project. It's actually housed at the John Force Racing shop. Not typically open to the public, but you can go online and see a tour and learn and read about it. And it's an extremely important part of our sport. The safety initiatives we've put into, especially the nitro cars, the safety and the legacy of Mr. Simpson. There are real results, and I just want to call those out. Ron got out on TV and he talked about John. He talked about past accidents he's been a part of, and the Fox Sports team alluded to, he's going to be sore. Well, I'm sure he is. That's not a pain physically I've ever dealt. And if you're watching my show, the odds are you've never been in a nitro car either. But he was safe, and it's a real cocoon that without catastrophe, the most violent and unusual moments end up with a great result. And he was even able to joke about partnerships and sponsorships in his interview. Ron's a real class act. There's a reason he's in the top 5 in almost every funny car statistic, because he doesn't give up and he's not afraid. And he'll be back at the next race and ready to win, believe me, considering they're going back home to California. So he walked away, and you can catch those. If you pull up NHRA's social media, they have shared video of that. The announce team did great. I thought that they were very responsible in the immediate of removing footage of the car just while they learned a little bit about it. I thought they did phenomenal. I think that's the biggest sign of respect. I do see some comments, but they're so far away. I'm going to pull them up on my phone. Give me a second here. And I just really, really believe that it was all handled great. And it's unfortunate, but the result was great. All right, I have some comments here. DJ saying, man, he was so fortunate. It really did look similar. And what I'm going to, if you're from the oval world, is our cars, when they hit that side wall so flush, I mean, it's really an impact that you can't describe, and typically not at a slower speed. Whereas with stock car racing, typically I would prefer to hit a side to side with a stock car. But with these weird, funny cars, you would prefer never to hit something, but if you have to, you're going to want to probably hit head on or get something to catch. Of course, we have the parachutes and other safety mechanisms. And I'm not the guy to teach you safety, okay? So if you're tuning in for the first time, you might think I'm a schmuck. I'm just telling you what I do know is that from tangible research and evidence, catastrophic moments, nearly every time it's a walk away with zero injury. So God bless Ron Capps today. He says, it's amazing that he got out of that car and talked to Bruno Massel. He was shaken up. These are safe cars. Well, Wasseen's a testament to that. Yeah, absolutely. I think that, And he's tough. Ron's kind of a shorter guy, but he's built. He's not weak. I'm sure he's going to the gym kind of regularly, and it's a shame. Now, I did talk to him last week, and you'd think they're going through these bodies. Of course, the sports future with Toyota is kind of up in the air. I know officially they're out at the end of 2025, but I wouldn't be surprised if he still had Toyota shaped bodies on those race cars for the next several seasons. And blowing them up, though, that's not going to keep them in inventory. We're going to wind down tonight on a shorter show, but I want to say I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to be doing some things. It was a little weird after the last 2.5 years to be on the road with the race teams and then go to Florida and see guys like DJ and see Mighty Mac and Dave Hoffman and my friends I've made that are internal. We've got Elin and Sarah and Josh and Allie and all of the JFR guys and our partners over there, the people the men and women that I saw every week. And so now I'm behind a mic again, and that's fine, and I love it. But this week was even more odd because now I wasn't even at the race wearing the media colors. Now I was a couch potato. I was an armchair quarterback. And I don't consider myself a fan. Some of you may. You may think of me as one or yourself. But it's really important for myself that I present as an honest, as educated as I can approach, as a student of nearly 30 years of racing and automotive history, that I present honest content and let you decide if I'm an idiot or a genius or anywhere in between. But I'm not a fan. The great Claire B. Lang, she's still with us. She's a NASCAR reporter, and she's done some other media. She was on a press conference with me and about 100 of our closest friends when Dale Earnhardt Jr. announced retirement. And Claire was oftentimes awarded questions, whether they had room for 3 questions or 30 questions in press conferences. She represented Sirius XM Satellite NASCAR Channel 90. And that's like working for Fox or NBC in that world. And so, sure, she worked hard, but her network was oftentimes awarded a question on a limited availability. And she asked her question of Dale Earnhardt and Dale Jr. And later that night, she hosted her show on Channel 90 of Sirius. And I called in, and I had talked to her several times. And I called, and I said, Claire, we were in that press conference today, and it was that one was a Zoom call. And I said, I couldn't help but watch you. You were glowing. You were smiling. You were talking with a smile. And I said, you really looked like a fan. And I meant that as a compliment. And she knew that. But she said, AJ, understand, a good reporter is not a fan. A good reporter might make friends, but they're not a fan. They're just there to provide analysis. At the end of every great show, I want to say the following. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to others. Smile. Be happy. And until then, take care. To our friends to the south, sea amable consigo mismo. Sea amable con otros. Sonríe. Sea feliz. Hasta entonces. Cuídese. Take care.